Good morning, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of EDUC 5433. So today I want to go over your assignments for the week, and then I'm going to go over a few concepts about emergent literacy that's really important. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go to Module 3. So this week for Module 3, you have one chapter to read. Notice that we skipped chapter 3. So you're going to be reading chapter 4, and it's called Fostering Emergent Early Literacy. And then there are some videos. There's this really good demonstration of a shared reading lesson in a kindergarten classroom, how to use Elkonin boxes, and then a couple of other videos that are great strategies if you for teaching early emergent literacy. You can review these resources that you will go back, you will do that for one of your assignments. So let's talk about those assignments today. You have 2 assignments. The first one is for your discussion post, you're actually going to be doing a demonstration. So you need to be demonstrating a strategy for emergent literacy. I don't want you to tell me about the strategy. I want you to model how to teach the strategy, okay? So you won't get full credit if you just explain it. I want you to teach it. So show us how to do this strategy, and in a minute, I'm going to model that for you. So you will do a video for that, and it has to be for emergent literacy. Then your assignment, you're going to do the same type of assignment that you did in week 2. And this is where we are going to be critiquing one of the research articles that is listed under the resources. And so if you go back to the Learn section, you're going to see that there are some articles there, and you can pick one of these. Evidence and questions from a science of reading perspective, elementary teachers' knowledge of foundational skills, any of those right there. If you want to, if you have another article, you can send that to me, and I'll look it over to see if I can improve that. If you are educational therapists and you have something that's more pertinent to that program, just run it by me, and that would be fine if you wanted to use that article for your critique. So when you do this critique, use the feedback that you got from the first critique, and we want to make sure that at the beginning that you are explaining the actual research, that you understand the study, the subjects, what's the intervention, was there an instrument? So did they use some type of an instrument to do pre and post assessments? What was the analysis and the findings? And then the second part is really important. This is that critical thinking, that critique part. Was it beneficial to you in literacy? Did it confirm or did it contradict your own understanding or the understanding that you have now? Could this be incorporated into your classroom? And then does this research connect to your textbook? You do need to use APA. If you are having problems with APA, don't forget that if you go to Get Started, course resources and materials, I have links for APA, and I even have a template that you can use for APA. So I would definitely do that, okay? So what I'd like to do now is I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the content, and then I'm going to be modeling some strategies for you. So what is emergent literacy? Emergent literacy is kind of my jam. That's a lot of my career. Last part of my career, I was a principal in a pre-K through 2nd grade classroom. So I'm very used to the little kids, the little ones. So what are some concepts? One big concept in early emergent literacy is what we call concepts of print. And I just put a few examples. This is things like knowing the parts of the book, knowing that there's a title page, knowing that there's an ending, knowing where to start to read, knowing that print goes from left to right, etc. Concepts of print. In order to teach concepts of print, kids have to have exposure to books and students reading. I'm going to show you the Florida Best Standards, and you can see what the concepts of print are in Florida. So, of course, these early emergent literacy standards are going to start in kindergarten. Most of them are going to be K1 and 2, although you will have some older kids that never got those foundational skills. You may have to go back to teach. So we can see in kindergarten, students need to locate a printed word on a page. They need to know the concept of word. They need to know the concept of letter. They need to distinguish letters from words in a sentence. So they need to know that a letter or a phoneme is one part of a larger word. They need to match print to speech. This is why we're asking kids to follow along as you are reading and to put their finger under each word as you're reading. Tracking print's real important. Identifying parts of a book, moving from top to bottom and left to right, knowing the difference between upper and lowercase letters, and then print concepts. Other foundational skills for early emergent literacy in kindergarten, we can see you're going to have to know, go back up. For those emergent literacy skills, you're going to need to know your phonological awareness. This is blending and segmenting sounds, rhyming words, medial sounds, being able to identify medial sounds and so forth. And I'll do some examples with that. There are emergent literacy skills in first grade also. So I would suggest you going to your state standards. It might be the Common Core standards, or if you're in Florida, the Florida Best standards. Make sure that you know what those early emergent literacy skills are. So when we look at content, sorry, I'm trying to do two screens here. I'm going to stop here. We can see that we have early emergent literacy. It consists of a lot of different things. So we know we have print concepts, we have phonological awareness. That's the ability to hear those sounds with blending and segmenting. Emergent literacy, you're going to do a lot of shared reading, interactive reading, where kids can see the book that you're using. Play and language development is going to be really, really critical also in early emergent literacy. And so in your reading, you need to look at these different aspects of emergent literacy: print concepts, oral language development, phonological awareness. You do get into some phonics where kids have to understand how to write letters and the sounds for letters. But the most important thing in early emergent literacy is going to be that phonological awareness. So what I'd like to do now is just demonstrate a couple things that you would use in early emergent literacy. One thing I wanted to show you is a great program called Secret Stories. So it's a book like this. And Secret Stories is like it sounds. It is where you are showing kids pictures and you're telling them stories about the letter sounds. So example, all of the vowel sounds are superheroes. And when they are in superhero mode, they love to say their name. So A says A, but when they're not in superhero mode, A is very lazy and likes to eat apples. So you teach the kid A for apple. And then when they're in superhero mode, they're saying A. Then we have, of course, E. When E is in superhero mode, they say their name, E. And when they are not in superhero mode, they dress up like an old woman and they say, eh, eh. So you're teaching them these sounds. It does get a little bit more complex. So, for example, our controlled vowels, they love to be in cars, but unfortunately, they are very, they like to speed. And so because they like to speed, when they put on the brakes, they say, er. And so that's one way you can teach students that are controlled vowel sounds at ER, IR, and UR. And so Secret Stories is a great way to show kids, give you another example, the AY and EYA. When they get together, they think they're pretty cool. And so they always say A. And so these are just a way that kids can connect these pictures and stories with the sounds in early literacy. So I would definitely recommend Secret Stories. Now I want to show you what we call an Elkonin box. And an Elkonin box is something that you just really need to have if you're a reading teacher. So they're pretty easy to make. You can get them free online. And I just copied them and laminated them. So what's one important thing with using the Elkonin box and with early emergent literacy is you want kids to understand blending and segmenting of sounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you the Elkonin box. So you don't need to see my face. And so if I said the word bat, for example, we would want kids to first tap out those phonemes. B, bat. Now we're going to lay. You can use anything you want. B, at. Then you can, when you want students to make those connections, you can always then have them write the B, the A, and the T. But before you get to that, you can do things like if I was to take away the B sound and I was to change that to a S sound, what's my new word? Cat. You can do that for ending. K, at. Now, if I change the T to a D, CAD, that's not a real word, but that's an example. So Elkonin boxes, there's so many things that you can do with Elkonin boxes, but I would definitely recommend it because you can get into more difficult concepts. So let's say that I said the word that. Let's count out how many sounds are in that. At. There's actually only 3 sounds. At. Because the TH is a consonant digraph, right? And so what you're teaching students is that sometimes you can have, sometimes you can have more than one grapheme in the box. So here we have that. So it can get a little bit more complicated. So I've also used this particular one. If you can see this one is called Tap, Map, Graph, and Zap. Let me do it this way. Tap, Map, Graph, and Zap. So let's say I said the word dog. First, we're going to tap it. D, A, G. Now we're going to map it. When we map it, we put we're going to put these little chips here. D, A, G. We're mapping it. Now, when we graph it, we're going to write the word. Let's see if I can write upside down. Okay. And then zapping it is to go across and to read it. Okay. So tap, map, graph, and zap. So those are just a couple of different strategies that you can use. Next week, I'm going to show you a reading toolbox that I created. But one thing about reading is it needs to be an active process. Kids need to be, we say word work, and we need to attack words, sound them out. Reading shouldn't be a passive process. So especially with emergent literacy, we need to be using manipulatives. We need to be letting students move. We need to be letting them do hand actions and so forth so that they can remember these concepts, especially with the phonological awareness. So that's all for this week. I hope you have a wonderful week. If you have any questions, don't forget that on Thursdays at 6, I do have open office hours. Thank you.